Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit for CynicalBrit.com and YouTube.com/TotalHalibut. We're doing these daily roundup videos of what we've actually seen at Gamescom, and this is what we're calling the Day 1. Technically, it's Day 2. Depends if you call the other one Day 0. God, I don't even know. It's such a silly way of saying it, but whatever the case, it was the first public day for Gamescom. So we had the opportunity to try out a number of different titles. Obviously, needless to say, we were not able to do a huge amount on the show floor after the public came in because it was busy. Oh my, if you've never been to an event like this before, then you just don't realize how busy it can actually be. Whatever the case, we got in nice and early on that day, and as you have seen probably so far, you will have noticed a wonderful set of 2 videos on the subject of Guild Wars 2. First thing I'm going to say, by the way, is that ArenaNet are some of the most helpful people in the world. Think about this for a second. The first thing we did was we walked past and we noticed, oh yeah, the public aren't in yet, and there's actually Guild Wars 2 set up, and nobody's on it. Let's take this opportunity to get the filming done. So we went there. We started setting up the camera. Now, bear in mind, some shows don't allow you to film off screen, and of course, Gamescom is no exception. There are quite a few booths and games that do not allow you to film. For instance, we would have loved to bring you Arkham City. That's no filming. Gotham's Imposters, also no filming. Lots of games do that, and there are varied reasons for it. Whatever the case, we had one of the IT guys actually from ArenaNet come up, and we thought, oh, they're going to ask us not to film. You know what the first thing he asked us was? Would you like direct audio feed from that? So, as a direct result for those first 2, that's the 40 minutes worth of PvE content that you actually received for Guild Wars. And if you haven't watched it already, then you are doing it wrong. You should check it out. YouTube.com/TotalHalibut should be in your subscription box. Then, yeah, you've got direct audio from that as well, which means voice acting. Is that not a wonderful thing? As well as the music and sound effects from the particular game. We do have one more Guild Wars video to come up. That does sadly not have game sound in it because it was actually a dual commentary with the lead systems designer, and it was PvP. And I know a lot of you guys have been looking forward to that one. It was a absolutely fantastic PvP battle, and it involves clock towers exploding. Yes, it is pretty awesome. I am able to show you a couple of classes as well as various weapon combinations. One of them has a flamethrower. Just bear that one in mind. It is pretty damn cool. So yeah, the Guild Wars thing for the start of that day was absolutely wonderful, so I'm really happy with that. However, that was not all. We actually had an interview with Victor, the founder of the one and only Wargaming.net, and he is quite a character. He talked to us about World of Tanks, he talked to us about the history of Wargaming.net, and for those of you, no doubt, very interested in this, he talked about World of Warplanes, and also a little bit about World of Battleships, and also mentioned World of Big Stumpy Robots, as it happens. We knew that he stifled what he actually wanted to say, which, of course, began with an F, but that guy is brilliant. He is hilarious. Absolutely fantastic fellow, and we're looking forward to bringing you that interview as one of many really great interviews that we've actually picked up over the last few days at Gamescom with some fantastic people. Now, what else did we do? We actually got hands-on with 2 of Hi-Rez's titles. That means Tribes Ascend. And a little bit better than that, full match, off-screen footage of Tribes Ascend. So I actually got to try that out. We played a full match. It was 5 versus 5, journalists versus journalists. And I got to try it out. I think about 7 of the 9 available classes. And yes, I did just say classes. Armor is... It's still in the game. You've got light, medium, and heavy, but it's actually integrated into a class system now, as opposed to just picking light, medium, or heavy. So there's several light classes, several medium classes, several heavy classes, and things like that. And that's going to be part of their business model as well. It is a free-to-play game. They're going to be having unlockable skins and cosmetics, as well as experience boosters, kind of like, once again, League of Legends. And they're also going to be having classes which are unlockable. But a lot of this stuff is also unlockable by our in-game progression as well. So it's pretty awesome that way. And classes give you access to new variety of weapons. They've also got a grenade type. They've also got a pack, of course. Those of you from Tribes remember the pack. And the packs do all sorts of different things. And because of the number of classes, there were all sorts of different packs available. So there's all kinds of different things that you can actually do. Full match was about 25 minutes in length. We recorded the entire thing. Sadly, no game audio, I'm afraid, but I did do solo commentary in the process. And I haven't entirely forgotten how to use a spin fuser, but kind of getting to that point. The second thing we saw from them, sadly, it's too early to show on film, so it was behind closed doors, but I can talk about it a lot. Smite. We actually did an interview with them on Smite, so telling you a little bit about that. What Smite is it's a brand new MOBA game, so in the style of League of Legends, Dota. Here is a newer Dota 2, and it's actually third person. So what that means means two things, really. One, limited field of view. So your situational awareness is much, much narrower. You're more reliant on your team calling missing. You're more reliant on how well you know the map. And, of course, you're more reliant on the mini-map as well, because it's a little harder to see ganking coming. So actually ganking takes on a whole new level, because people can actually come outside of your field of view and sneak up on you literally without using something like, say, something to block a line of sight or brushes or anything like that. So that's really cool. Second thing is, it also means that everything is aimed. There is absolutely no ability, which is like a so-called tab target ability. So you can't click on something and then just hit a button. Does not work. It just simply does not work. So what you have to do is you've got to aim every ability. Every ability is a skill shot. And actually the auto attacks kind of have a pseudo aiming element to them as well. They have kind of a lock on if you're sort of close enough to minions, for instance, which is something I actually gave them feedback on, because it was kind of annoying. I was trying to shoot at an opposing player, but we were quite close to minions, so actually the auto attack went to the minion instead of him. Whatever the case, the skill shot based gameplay in the third person perspective actually results in a really frantic, high paced game. And we ended up playing with, sadly, a couple of the guys for the appointment actually cancelled, so we ended up playing with 6 people total. The developer was playing, and me and Frank took up in a 2 versus 4. Yes, we did actually win as well. They commented after the interview that we stomped them completely. We of course are MOBA players, and the other journalists kind of weren't. It was a bit of a massacre, what can I say, but it was hilarious. So we did actually win a 2 versus 4 game. Really proud about that, but great thing I like about High Res, by the way, aside from them being extremely approachable, very friendly guys who are obviously very passionate about their games, of course, including Global Agenda, is the fact that they are really willing to take feedback. So we gave them a ton of feedback on both Tribes Ascend and, of course, the one and the only Smite. One thing I will say, by the way, for those of you who have noticed this, there's actually been a lot of complaints about this, the size of the weapons in Tribes Ascend. We gave them direct feedback on the size of the weapons and said to them, the competitive community wants the ability to turn the weapon models off completely. We said that to them. They acknowledged it. They said that that's an easy fix. They said that that sounds important. So it looks like you should be getting either smaller weapons or, of course, no weapon models whatsoever, configurable size and things like that for tournament play. So just bear that one in mind. What else did we see? We actually went back to Paradox to have a look at 2 more titles. We looked at TurboTape's Naval War Arctic Circle, which is an RTS. It looks like a war game, but it's actually a real-time strategy. It's fairly accessible, so I was pretty impressed by just how accessible it was. It looks a bit basic on first impressions. It's like, oh, it's a very sort of flat, plain-looking war game, but in reality, it's a really deep, well-simulated game, but that's also very accessible. I was actually really intrigued by it because I love the idea of modern naval warfare, but of course, you never get to see it represented properly in games these days. So to me, that was awesome to look at, and those of you who are fans of naval war or indeed are fans of just wargaming in general and tactical stuff like that, you will like that, I think. You will really like that footage, and that was a good dual commentary with one of the developers as well. We also saw Salem, which was Salem. It was Salem. It's a torch and pitchfork simulator. Salem is just bizarre. It's really hard to explain what Salem is unless you've maybe played the guy's other game, which is Haven and Hearth, which was really bizarre in and of itself. Salem is just wacky. It's a so-called crafting MMO. So it's based around crafting, creating your own world with a lot of other people, but there's a lot of political stuff that gets involved with it. So they're actually making the game kind of entirely self-governing. There is also permadeath. So this game is just completely and totally out there. The interview was pretty funny, and it was, of course, a dual commentary with the developers, and we watched them play the game and do all sorts of crazy stuff. It's actually got some really weird mythological monsters, Lovecraftian stuff in it as well. I don't even know with that game. That is the most bizarre game I've seen at this entire show, and as a result, it is really intriguing. So I'm looking forward to seeing more from Salem. Now, I believe that almost covers it, with the exception of one other thing that we did get a chance to film, and that was, of course, yet more The Old Republic. Those of you who were asking for a hands-on with just me doing solo commentary, I did some low-level play with the Smuggler. So I gave you, I think, about I think it's about 18, 19 minutes of play, give or take. Sadly, didn't have audio, but you have heard the audio in our really in-depth playthrough with the one and only Stephen Reed, so you know how good the voice acting is. I was doing solo commentary on that to give you my opinions. What I would like to say about ToR and Guild Wars, by the way, it's actually a good time to talk about both of these because, needless to say, it's kind of important to address the issue of, like, which is the better game? The answer is there is no better game. Both of these games, even at this stage, seem incredibly polished, and they also seem to do what they do very, very well. And I think that's the thing you've got to understand. They are both aimed at different demographics, and they are both done in different ways. ToR is a highly traditional MMO with exceptional polish and with a second-to-none storyline. That's the thing. As far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen of ToR, you can play ToR like Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2, and you will not suffer at all. You have companions and things like that. The questing works kind of in the same way. Yeah, it's a bit more MMO-ish. For instance, the combat system, you don't have a pause or anything like that, so it is all in real time. So it does make things a little bit different. But aside from that, it is pretty much Knights of the Old Republic. And as a direct result, I love the storyline. And I think that's what will probably carry me through more so than anything else. Yeah, it's a hotkey MMO. Yeah, the combat is, I would say, familiar in a WoW sense and also very, very tight. There are some new mechanics, which I do get to show you in the Smuggler video. There's a cover mechanic, which actually changes things around entirely, which is pretty cool. So that's definitely worth looking at. And I'd also like to tell you we will be, hopefully, getting PvP footage. We've actually got an appointment to get PvP. The length of that, indeterminate. All we know is it's going to be a long session, so we're looking forward to getting that. Hopefully we'll get some dual commentary, but if not, we're doing solo commentary on PvP, trying to explore it as much as humanly possible. And of course, if you want to know more about the Old Republic, you want to watch our interview with the one and only Gabe. He actually did give us some really, really awesome information. So that's fantastic. You should definitely check that one out. That's actually up on the YouTube channel right now because we couldn't wait. We actually ended up doing it today. We're recording this video today. This is basically what we were doing yesterday, and that's how we're doing it. So that was a really informative little video. It's only about 6 minutes, but it basically tells you a nice little primer about the end game content, including flashpoints, including operations, which are, of course, multi-group content, and all sorts of really, really good stuff about that. So that's very informative. Guild Wars 2, I think, is actually the MMO I'm most excited about, because as you've seen from what I've said in the videos, it is really cool and different. It's got great combat, good voice acting, really great aesthetic, but the way the PvE works is so incredibly different. It's like they took elements from, say, Warhammer Online public questing and actually pumped it up to an absurdly high level. Like, as far as I can tell, all of the low-level stuff, I think maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 quests, all pretty much public quests that, of course, are on this track system whereby they go backwards and forwards along this track. If you actually don't complete the quest, you can fail the quests, and that will cause it to move further along the track and bad things happen. You can actually lose control of areas, or, of course, you can push the enemy forces all the way back. And that was the thing that really intrigued me about it, and it works. It works really well. I like the weapon system. I like the combat. It's slick. It's punchy. It's awesome in pretty much every respect, and I also love the PvP, and you'll see just how much I like the PvP in the video that we're actually probably going to put out tomorrow. So there you go, folks. That is the roundup of day one of the stuff that we actually did on day one. That's pretty much all we saw and covered. My name has been TotalBiscuit, and I'll see you next time.